Hi, this is Alex Gonzalez of In Your Phase. In this episode, we're going to be reviewing the Space Marine Codex. So it's going to be one Xeno player and 3 Imperial players, godding and nerding out on power armor. We're going to be talking about some of the winners and losers, as well as some of the ins and outs of this codex and how it's going to change the competitive meta moving forward. If you guys like this episode and all previous episodes, do like and subscribe on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, frankly, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review if you can. We have a lot of hobby content coming out later in the week, as well as our regular stat show as well on Twitch and on YouTube. Enjoy the show.
It's in the rulebook.
Yeah, no, Garrett's actually technically right.
It's in the core rulebook.
No one's like his name is technically Mr. Technically Right. He is technically right in the order of operation, but no one's going to play it that way.
I hope so.
Hold on. Really important. What are we talking about?
Well, ignoring Rend 1 is not worth it. Like, this is why I'm not taking a Magifier anymore. Like, there's no point in taking a Magifier.
It's because you think there's no point, but the reality is that like people won't play it that way, so you're fine. And then for Alex's perspective, when you play Nilak, or whatever the one that gives you ignoring Rend 1 AP on your army. So technically, the way it's worded doesn't work because removing the rend is before you apply rend. So I don't know why they wrote that.
It works if you, like, for example, a heavy bolter is rend 1. I'll go with the Valorous Heart with a Magifier example.
I was trying to layman it, but sure, go for it.
I know, but it's not super layman. So how it works is a Valorous Heart ignores, they turn rend 1 into rend nothing. And then they have, if you use a Magifier with them, they turn Rend 1 and Rend 2 into Rend nothing. So let's say pre-new Space Marine Codex, I don't know how the new Codex works, but you had the Tactical Doctrine on, the Devastator Doctrine on a Heavy Bolter. Heavy Bolter is Rend 1. If no Doctrine, no nothing, you turn Rend 1 into Rend nothing. Now you go to Rend 2 because it's a Devastator Doctrine. How it would work is, I am Rend 1, so I turn Rend 1 into Rend nothing, because I also turn Rend 2 into Rend nothing. Then you add the extra Rend from Devastator Doctrine to make it Rend 1. So a Heavy Bolter in Devastator Doctrine would be Rend 1 against a Magifier Valorous Heart, which ignores Rend 2.
Right, but that's still better than it being Rend 2.
I know, but it's just like, it's one better. Is it worth having this 45-point character that walks around and has to restrict myself to maybe ignore Rend 2?
Oh, I don't know. I'm talking about Salamanders.
No, the Salamanders work the same way. Salamanders are the same thing as Valorous Heart.
Okay. Time out for a second. To answer John's question, so there is a Salamander's Warlord trait that gives you +2 toughness. So in a Chapter Master of Angel Artifice on a bike, you would be Toughness 8 with 7 wounds. Ignoring Rend 1. Because he's Salamanders. Nice. And having the ability to reroll 1 wound roll because Master Artificers. And then I think he also has like one additional rule, which really works very well for this, which is the fact that during the Tactical Doctrine, Flame or Melter weapons are add 1 to the rune roll. I don't know if you would add any. You can't really add any of those, but just imagine like 14-inch movement model with a toughness 8, 5 attacks, or 4 attacks technically, 7 wounds, 2 up, 4 up invul model just walking around. It'd be pretty fun, right?
That sounds baller. Yeah, Power Fist.
By the way, for about 140 points, I think or something, 150 points or something. Is
it that expensive now?
So anyway,
I don't think it's
so the captain on a bike is about like captain on a bike is 100 points. Chapter Master upgrade is 40, and then
that's right. You got to pay for the Chapter Master upgrade as points now. Yeah, okay, never mind. But you know what that does is it actually, like when I used to pay for a Chapter Master, he was running like 160 to 190 points with a 200-point Chapter Master being kind of a max build.
Yeah.
So
they're cheaper than that now.
Yeah, these are still point levels that are what,
affordable.
6th edition?
I'm still stuck in AOS land where a support character is 120.
Well, only for certain armies. The rest of the Seraphon book is just like, nah, our support characters are cheaper.
Hey, wrong game system. And speaking of which, hi everyone. Welcome to this tangent that we call the In Your Face podcast. We are going to be talking primarily about 40K today. We have our Space Marine Codex in front of us, and as much as I want to completely ignore it for several different reasons, people play Space Marines here. Who'd have thought? So we're going to be talking about that, and we have our phases. We want to, of course, go through them, go over them, go under them, and everything like that. On my phase is a bunch of I almost said Space Marines. That's horrible. That's disgusting.
Would you owe some people some money if you were playing Space Marines, or is that
okay? So they're probably not listening to this, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I had an agreement with two people, one of which started the Wide World of Wargaming with us, Vincent Morgado, and then Anthony. They both kept on giving me shit because I played Taudar at the beginning of 6th edition, or most of 6th edition. And, eventually I was just like, you know what, you guys, fuck you. Like, the Space Marine Codex is coming out. If I start Space Marines, I owe you both $100. And they were like, yeah, we're going to hold you to it. And now, like, what? If I start a Space Marine army, are they going to fucking come after me? No.
Anthony would.
No, he's too lazy to drive up here.
No, he wouldn't drive up there, but he would pester you online.
Oh, that's fine. Block buttons exist. I don't give a shit. But that being said, no, I just have very little interest in starting a Space Marine army, frankly. If I did, I would do something like 30K again, but that was a failed project because I'm not a big fan of the community, which is a whole nother thing. On my phase is a butt ton of Necrons. I'm looking at my old CCBs. I've completely reorganized my hobby closet, and it is now peak what I want. It is organized, and it is clean, and it is neat, and it's got everything there. And I actually realized that I had a lot more Necrons that were back in pieces again than I had rebuilt, and a lot of those pieces still had paint on them. So I need to slowly strip the stuff that I had purposely taken apart and repaint it in my new image. So I have my CCBs that need to get changed. I have my Doomsday arcs essentially, and my non-pariah Lich Guard, I basically stripped and I turned back into Sword and Board Lich Guard. But all my Sword and Board Lich Guard are now in a way that now allows me to have whatever option I want. So as an example, I got a Lich Guard like this. It's got a hyperphase blade, but it's it's a war scythe or a hyperphase blade. So I basically turned each one turned them into one-handed ones, use the hyperphase sword instead, so that you can have them. And they're really dynamic. It's super easy to dynamically post Lich Guard, so I love them.
Those are
so
cool.
I did that.
And you're doing the same thing that I noticed with Tau is, darn Xenos weapons. Nobody knows what they look like anyways. As long as it's generally looks like something, then it's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, Tau, no, you can't really get away with that as much because a fusion blast, fusion weapons look one very explicit type, plasma look one very explicit type. And,
yeah, because you play Tau like me. Yes, obviously.
Mm-hmm. But then, my favorite one that I have so far is on my list that I've been running lately. I've been doing the 2 Doomstalkers, which, by the way, these boys, I magnetized them.
Broken.
They're very, very big models. And so, with that, there are these 2 really big models, right? And I keep them near Kineptech controller Technomancer. Not, he might be able to heal a unit nearby in terms of rights reanimation, but primarily he's there so that he can give them. The fun thing about the reanimators, the Doomstalkers, is that they have a degrading profile, but their ballistic skill never degrades. So they're always hitting on 4s. So yeah, they're not great in close combat at all, despite their big ass legs, but they're always hitting on 4s. So if you have a controller near them, they're always hitting on 3s, and there are enough wounds where you can't target unless you're a sniper. You can't actually target the Cryptek unless he's the closest unit. So if he's kind of flanked by these guys in a way, then it's going to be harder to actually sort him out. And he's not, Crypteks aren't really big. They're not the size of Overlords. They're shorter than a Primaris generally. So because of that, I wanted to make new Crypteks, and what I did is I took the Plasma Caster model and I I changed his staff of light to be the staff of light from the cloak tech cryptex. And then I gave him legs. I gave him immortal legs.
Oh, that's the guy that, yeah, okay,
yeah.
cool.
But all the fancy bits, all these like the little fancy, jewelry or the like dangly bits he's got, they're a little too tall. So I had to cut the dangly bits on the front and the sides. And after that, it was just a head or weapon swap. And so he's just this tiny little guy pointing and being like, that's the guy who hit me. And the fucking Doomstalkers just go nuts. So it's gonna be pretty fun. I've been building a lot. Right now I have Illuminor Ceres, which I was building my own Illuminor Ceres, and then Jeremy found one at a game store when we were trying to find shit, and he got me an Illuminor. So now we're building that guy up. And he's actually got a lot of spindly bits, and he's clearly gonna have to be painted in pieces. So that's gonna be a whole nother journey. He's not gonna be painted like the rest of my army because he's a dynastic agent. And I feel like it's easier to paint them separately anyways, just to know, oh yeah, that guy doesn't get dynasty rules because he's not the same color. So that's going to be on my phase pretty soon. Just building all these Necrons up and testing them out. I'm really excited to do it. I played a game with Jeremy. It was on our live stream, so it's currently available for everyone on YouTube and probably not on Twitch anymore, but it will be available on our Facebook. I lost due to several very explicit reasons, primarily me not understanding 9th edition as much. So it was a learning experience. I didn't realize that when you were in ruins, you could be as seen as easily, even if you were towing. And, I lost scarabs very easily, and my list wasn't super optimized, and I made it optimized after the fact. I chose 2 of my secondaries were pretty good choices. One of them should never have been taken at all. And I immediately capped myself on how many points I could earn severely by my 3rd secondary, which really frustrated me once I discovered that mid-game. So, if I probably should have said spoiler alert for those, but, watch the game. Definitely a bit of a learning experience, had some fun. There are things that changed. It was funny to see 10 Lich Guard go up against 1,700 points of Space Marines all at once. That was a whole nother journey. That was pretty fun. Watch Jeremy get frustrated at the organization of the Necron Codex or the Space Marine Codex, and have him not understand why he can't roll the proper prayer for the chaplain 2 turns in a row. So, that was fun. It was fun. Upcoming though, the rest of this phase for this week is going to be more building of Necron models, hopefully getting maybe 1 or 2 games in. I'm going to be out of town for the weekend. So I was supposed to get married this upcoming Saturday, but because of COVID, that's just not happening. So we're going to be out of town. So that's what's going on for me. Not much in terms of the actual gaming, but a lot more of the building and preparing. So after that, I'm drinking some Wild Roots blueberry or raspberry vodka with some soda water. So just hanging out. And yeah, I'm going to share some memes with you guys later because I couldn't find them immediately, specifically related to some of the things we're going to be talking about today. But for my phase, that's pretty much it. John, what about you?
Hey, what's up, Alex? Hey, first off, that vodka, I'm used to a raspberry vodka being, just kind of like still a clear, more of a syrupy drink, but that was pretty dark actually. So
yeah.
Was that like fully infused with like raspberry juice or something? That looked pretty good.
It's an Oregon, it's a Portland brand. I'll see what the availability is in your area, because if it
is that going to be raspberry or is it the Oregon? What's the berry up? Loganberry.
Loganberry and boysenberry both.
Mm.
And huckleberries are pretty common up here too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
it
good
is
stuff.
It is.
Oh, Marionberries.
Marionberry. That's the one. That's the one. I knew there was a less common berry that's every time I go visit my my family up in Oregon, it was always all about that. Myself, however, I'm enjoying a little bit of the old Glenlivet 15 that Jeremy gave me for my birthday, and that is a fine alcohol. Beyond that, as we started the episode, Garrett and I were having a spirited discussion over some rules here, and I decided to go ahead and take a look at the big rule book and see what it has to say about what Garrett was talking about, some supposed order of operations that he was obviously carrying forward from like 5th. No, I'm not giving you permission to talk. This is my phase. You're going to shut the fuck up. Okay. So what I'm seeing here is that, unfortunately, once again, Garrett was correct. So first you apply all absolute modifiers such as ignore or change to. Then you do division, then multiplication, then addition, then subtraction. And I would propose that if you're changing rend, that subtraction is actually addition due to the double negative, so it would happen at the addition step. But unfortunately, ignore is what I would call a flat modifier that happens before all of those things happen. So damn you, Garrett. I thought I had one on you. I was hoping. I read the rules twice. I found it in 2 different places in the big rule book. And it amazingly, unlike the rules in the Space Marine book, they were the same in both places in the big rule book. So that's something we'll get into a little bit later. Other than that, what's been in my phase this week? I myself, guys may have seen this last weekend. I did a little episode of Fireheads with Reese Robbins. He and I climbed that pepper ladder, went all the way up to 1.25 million Scoville Naga Viper peppers, and we burnt our faces off. And as I'm recording today on a Tuesday, 4 days later, my tongue is still a little tender. In fact, I noticed it when I was eating lunch today. So we'll see what's coming up. I have a couple other of those hot pepper interviews lined up for you guys. So look out for those. In fact, a couple people have hit me up that now want to climb that pepper ladder. So that should be fun. Other than that, I have been building the heck out of some models. So first off, I built 4 of the Primaris ATVs, Invader ATVs, and these are cool models. And I did go ahead and do an unboxing video. In fact, all the stuff I bought, I went ahead and did unboxing videos. Go ahead and look for those on In Your Phase on our YouTube channel. But I didn't think these would be this big. Look how big this is. This This is, I would say, a little bit bigger than a speeder. Maybe not as thick, but as far as actual area coverage, it's a speeder. And there's no base to it.
That's not a Mario Kart.
That is not a Mario Kart. It's a pretty sizable model there. Longer than a bike.
Okay, hold on. It might not be a Mario Kart, but there's absolutely nothing stopping someone from painting it.
Oh God,
sure.
No. Yeah.
And I think we've all seen the Mario Kart painting. Beyond that, I've also started building my Locust heavy destroyers, and I actually made them so that I can swap the weapons out, so I can play it with either weapon. Then I was checking out some rules, and I decided that I really like these eradicators, the guys with the melt-a-guns.
Shocking.
I built 6 of them, so I got 2 squads of eradicators now, and I decided, to go with those eradicators, I need a really cool new Primaris captain. So I also built up this pimp captain out of the Indomitus box set, and of course we got to have the headsman to go with him. And I just love that sword. I don't know if you guys ever read Citadel of the Autarch by Gene Wolfe. That was the story of Severian, the headsman. Amazing far future story. It's a set like 3 billion years in the future, like as the sun is just about to fade into its last bits of energy. Some pretty neat far future ideas and concepts in there. Anyways, classic 70s fiction. Highly recommend it. But the main character had this cool sword that was hollow and filled with mercury, so that when he swung it down, the weight would shift to the tip. And that's what I think of when I look at this square headsman sword on this guy too. So he's pretty damn cool. So that's really what's been in my phase, is all kinds of building models. And then, of course, you guys probably saw this last Wednesday, I started a new hobby stream where I began working on the Necron Scorpech Lord. And probably about the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm going to finish that build on Wednesdays, adding lights. We're going to do a beating heart effect. We're going to do, in his power claw, we're going to do multicolor flashing lights to create like an energy effect. And then we're putting lights and fiber optics into the weapon as well. So it should be pretty darn cool. And that is everything that's been in my phase this week. Oh my gosh. Garrett, what has been in your phase, my friend?
So first I want to respond to John. I'm sorry, I'm right. Like it was one of those things where actually I knew I was right this time, because I had a discussion with one of my friends who was an Age of Sigmar player, Justin. You remember Justin? So he actually is new to 40K, and he asked me this question like maybe a month or so after the release of Ninth, and I was like, no, it doesn't work that way. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh shit, it does work that way. So I actually had the same reaction you did, where I had to look it up and be like, oh fuck, it does work that way. So that's why I knew I was right on this one. It wasn't an addition. Actually, my addition math of like doing things previously was what got me in trouble, because 9th edition is actually the first edition where setters happened the first thing, because previously setters were always last. Right. And I was just stuck in my setters are last. So clearly it works this way. And then I'm like, oh, they made setters first. That's a change. So yeah. But yeah, to no surprise, I have been doing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in my phase. I am now officially doing 4 role-playing games a week. My wife is DMing her game, and we started it, and she asked, well, do you guys want to meet next week? To a resounding yes. And I'm like, welcome to the trap. We planned on doing twice a month, and we are now doing once a week, because everyone was like, yes, we wish to continue playing. So I noticed in John's show notes that he made for us, he wanted me to tell a short story about my D&D, because that's all I talk about these days. And I guess in one of my campaigns, I'm running the Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign module by Wizards of the Coast, and we have reached chapter 4, which is this really exciting adventure where the players go out, like they haven't played it out yet, they just started it, but I'm really excited for this, because they basically go out to a derelict ship to find some documents for like land titles and stuff that this merchant needs. But the ship is derelict out in the middle of the sea because an elder octopus is attacking it. And so halfway through the adventure, an elder octopus is a really old octopus, okay? So basically, halfway through the adventure, the octopus is supposed to start attacking, and they need to escape the vessel while an octopus is trying to drag this vessel underwater.
Awesome.
And it sounds like it's going to be a really exciting adventure. I was sorely disappointed with chapter 3 of the book, where they were supposed to go into this lizard folk lair and do all this diplomacy, but it was written in a way that made it so diplomacy was not an option from the beginning, and they basically were bound to fail from the start. It just didn't go over well, and the players were disappointed. I was disappointed, and they basically did none of the adventure. Like, they went in, got attacked by an overwhelming force of lizard folk, because turns out lizard folk don't like humans. And so they said, fuck it, we're going home. And that was the adventure. That was literally it. We didn't do anything. They were supposed to like meet a queen, talk to her, deal with all this diplomacy. No, they said, fuck it, we're going home. And I'm like,
and they want to come back the next week.
Yeah. So, but now I'm excited that we get to go on to a dungeon delving, octopus escaping adventure that's just full of excitement and combat and just great fun stuff that has a large payout at the end. So I'm really excited for that. And the setup is really good. And so that's kind of been reading up on that, and then planning for my eventual kingdom building sessions for my other campaign have been consuming a lot of my time, because my players have entered the stage where they get to I'm going off of the Pathfinder Kingmaker module. Mm-hmm. And so as John has played the video game, and so they've entered the stage where they're actually able to start their kingdom. And fun. Yeah, so I've entered that stage of my campaign, and it's a homebrewed version of it, so a bit different, and it's based off. And I'm actually using the D&D 5e system, so I've had to change some rules and stuff. But it's an exciting turning point where you go from just these explorers in the wilderness to running a kingdom, and so that is I've had to plan out a whole bunch of things on how to handle that. And so this last week has kind of been managing those two pivotal points in both my campaigns, while also starting the first session with my wife for her campaign, which was I'm playing my half-elf bard. I actually get to be a player for once. So that's basically been my phase for the week. Now I've actually thought about painting models because I think I want to start.
Oh, shit.
I know. I want to paint my Sisters of Battle. I think I'm ready. I think I got to strip them because they're metal. You can strip them 1 billion times. So I think I'm going to try to repaint my Sisters of Battle and Order the Bloody Rose. I've started organizing them. I have my plastic ones, the Zephyrim that I just bought, plus the Mortifers. And I'm going to start painting my sisters. So I was about to this weekend, but then I got sidetracked with other things. But I think next week I might have started painting my sisters. We'll see.
This is very concerning because I also read an article today about how the Hadron Collider in France is generating small black holes and might be connecting to an alternate dimension. So you combine that with Garrett painting his army, and this is not a safe way to close out the year. That's all I'm saying.
Anyways, Jeremy, what are you doing?
I'm pinning my sisters. No, like, I want to point out that I have 5 minutes to talk and 5 minutes of rage-fueled rant. So,
oh no,
I don't know how I'm supposed to time this out, John, but I'm gonna point it out too. The last few weeks or last week, I've been last week I've been painting my Sisters of Battle and assembling them and finishing up because I actually want to play that army on the table. I want to go to AOS and 40K events as soon as we reopen in the Pacific Northwest, and I want to rotate between for 40K. I want to rotate between my Imperial Fist and Sisters of Battle.
Great,
mostly because whatever. F you.
Super fun. Super
No Harlequins?
fun.
No Harlequins. No. Too many Harlequin players. I got to show them how to not be Harlequin.
Too many Harlequin players, but you know those Imperial Fists. You know they're a dime a dozen. You know they're just.
Yeah, you can complain, but like Sisters of Battle,
how original!
Literally 1 to 2 players in the entire Pacific Northwest who play in Sisters. So I'm looking forward to busting it.
You're fair. Eben's one of them, and then I can't think. Oh, I don't want to say the name of the other one.
Oh, okay, Lord Hanar, got it. And then so for me, I'm looking forward to the reason I love the Imperial Fist mostly is because of Sentinels of Terra book. I really enjoyed like that entire the Praetorians of Terra, Black Library book, and that's what got me really like solidified because I was more of a Black Templar fanboy, and then that was my first like Space Marine army, followed by my White Scars, and transitioning into going forward, I picked Ebon Chalice out of Sisters of Battle because I just honestly liked the way they worked, and then they kind of like I read the fluff finally for the first time this weekend about them, and they were just basically like they're Sentinels of Terra except Sisters of Battle edition, and I was just like sold. I'm like, this is gonna be the army I'm gonna run. I'm still gonna have a Bloody Rose contingent because Bloody Rose Seraphims are terrifying on the table. Like they're just like one of the most like hard-hitting like glass cannon unit in the game that you can't shoot at, so it's just like, yeah, I have to take Bloody Rose Seraphims. They're just too good to pass up. And then but for my hate-filled rage today, I want to mostly talk about something that's unfortunately not too much 40K related, but it does touch on 40K a little bit. So bring up my background for it. All right, what really grinds my gear today, and that's the rules writing team out of the Age of Sigmar community. What the fuck is wrong with you? So, and I don't say that lightly. Even I know I gripe a lot about rules because it's what I'm entitled to do. I'm a player, I'm a customer. I get to complain about the product I'm purchasing. And I know it's very selfish, but the reality is like it would be unfair to not talk about the Sons of Behemoth book. I know we're a 40K show today, but what a terrible book, guys. Like, so 2 things that made Imperial Knights popular for 40K, because that's what effectively Sons of Behemoth functions as. It's basically Imperial Knights with like their little like Harbinger buddies, and that's the AOS version. That's the AOS version of Imperial Knights. But when you play Imperial Knights, you can kind of like build a narrative, and you're not constricted to like what you want to build your army around. The AOS version is not that. Not only are the War Scrolls in a vacuum not that great for the points you pay, they're not that durable, unlike an Imperial Knight. They're also like incredibly restrictive. So like all the buffs you can, if you play Imperial Knights, you get all these stratagems, you get all these buffs, right? And then the AOS, if you play Sons of Behemoth, you get these buffs and you get these abilities that are only unique if you play that allegiance. But they're so restrictive in how you can build the list that like you get no real option. Like you're like, well, shit, I want to take all 3 Gargants. But if I take all 3 Gargants, or Mega Gargants, sorry, I can only really create a narrative around one of them. But if I take 3 of the same Mega Gargants, I can create a narrative around all 3. Like it didn't make sense. Like there was like such a fear of birthing like this mega amazing army that like they were worried it was going to shift the entire, like it felt like they were so restricted because they feared like the meta would just change entirely into buying these effectively 5 to 9 model army, that they decided to just write it in such an abysmal and restrictive way. If you take away even the power level, which they do not have any of, they're just written badly. They're just not enjoyable for even the narrative player. And I think like that's what grinds my gear. And I hope I kept that under 5 minutes, John. But
I don't know, but you know what? I think you made a really good point there. And it's a funny thing we've seen with Knights. Now I'm a Knight player and I've played Knights across several editions since they first came out. And one of the problems that GW has had with Knights is finding a proper balance point. And that's why we've seen, as a Knight player, I've seen Knights go from way overpowered to useless to way overpowered to, and they're just on this seesaw of power because they either are dying too easy, can't, like right now, Knights are in a very bad place, right?
Yeah, they're
before
in a
they
real
were
bad
in a
place.
very good, yeah,
they're in a horrible
before they were in a
place
great
in 40K.
place. And unfortunately, that's what I see with the Sons of Behemoth is they actually have less variety, less options, like you said, than Knights do. But they're these big, large models, and because they're such a mono army with so few choices, and each unit by nature has to be so powerful, it's very difficult to find a balance. So
yeah, like I've said this to a bunch of people privately. There is no way to balance Knights. They either are too powerful because there's not enough anti-tank in the game, or they're not powerful enough because there's too much anti-tank in the game. Like that's it. Like there's no balance for Knights because you're only taking 3 models. So if you can kill one,
hold on, you're taking like 4 to 6 models.
Fine, because they added the armatures. A whole 6 fucking.
You
models.
can fit 4 Knights, full big ass Knights in a 2K.
I disagree with that entire logic that they haven't figured out how to make Knights durable in a high meta anti-tank and a low meta anti-tank, and that's because we get Satans now. We had Marathian AOS. If you limit the amount of wounds a certain model can take in a phase, you can figure out ways to make them functional the entire game. And they've figured that out. They just, for some reason, like I can't tell if it's because, like, let's just be honest, like from a dollar perspective, Mega Gargants, Sons of Behemoth are going to be the most profitable product that Games Workshop's ever manufactured, because the amount of plastic in those versus the price they're selling them at is incredibly high. And I think there's 2 reasons for that. Either they think they're not going to be that popular, so they're basically just trying to cut their loss a little bit on the R&D by pricing them incredibly high margin, or they think they're going to be super popular, so they're just going to be, make a ton of money off them. I can't, honestly, like, they look incredibly fun to play, but they're, outside of Knights, like to John's point earlier, if you want to play a Sons of Behemoth list, you're either get War Stomper, Kraken, or Gatebreaker, and you can't really mix them without and that's the fundamental problem in that book. Like, it's like, why would you add only 4 unit options and like design the rules to not really mix them? Why?
Yeah, it would be like, it'd be like in 40K is if you could take either a Crusader or a Warden and you had to take 3 of one.
Yeah.
Right? Back when there was only the not Crusader, the Warden or the Paladin. Back when there was only a Warden and Paladin, you could either take 3 Wardens or 3 Paladins. You couldn't mix Wardens and Paladins at all.
Like they went ham of like basically their there was like this overly restrictive and also like balancing mindset where like to be fair, so I'm got letter Kenny stuck in my head every time I say that. To be fair, the reality is that unfortunately, for at least for like think of it like an Imperial Knight that hit like a dreadnought, and that's how they design Imperial Knights in AOS, unfortunately, and and that's really sad and unfortunate because they people have been waiting for this army to come out since they announced it, and this is what they got effectively.
It should basically be as badass, like that giant should be as badass as any single character from any faction anywhere. Like you take whatever you want to say is the most powerful of X, this should do it. And since it's a non-magical giant, it should be all kinds of melee. And in my mind, giants actually are good at dealing with mobs too, you know, much like knights with some stompy effects. So that's what I would have wanted to see, is some area of effect stuff that happens against, you know, 1 or 2 wound models, and then some really strong, powerful attacks with a variety.
What's funny is that honestly, from a math perspective, like the problem is that most of their attacks are 3s and 3s. If they just made them wound on 2s, their power level would skyrocket because they get like 10 attacks that do 2 damage a swing, but they're 3s and 3s.
Depends.
Yeah, but it's like
it depends on the tribe you take.
Yeah, it depends on the tribe. It's like if they just made them have their base wounding be a 2. Like they would be from like a lot of their abilities rather than like 4s and 3s, and they made them 4s and 2s, or like 3s and 3s, they made them 3s and 2s.
Yeah, I get their
attacks. They would be like so much more damage output. Just that one bump in a wound profile across all of their attacks would have done it. Like I don't know what. Like there seems to be this weird thing in AOS where they make everything 3s and 3s, and I'm like, you realize a 3 and 3 is like a 33% plus a 33% reduction in damage, which ends up being like a 45% reduction in damage. So you're looking at, or 40, was that a 44% reduction in damage? That's like almost half a damage drop. So what it like, but at going from a 3 and 3 to a 3 and 2 bumps your damage output by a ton. So it's like, just, you know, like stop making things 3s and 3s that are supposed to be really good in combat. Make them 3s and 2s. I don't know.
As great as this is. Oh yeah, Jeremy.
I one clothing thought. And this is for 40K players. Imagine you played a game against 1 to 3 gallon Imperial Knights, and that was it.
Plus 3 armigers. Plus 3 armigers. Don't forget the 3.
Well, it depends how many gallons they got, right? Because if they got 3 gallons, it's just really nothing else. And if they got 1 gallon, you get 8 armigers.
No, if you have 3 gallons, you get 3 armigers. You do get 3 man crushers for 3.
You get 2.
You get 2.
Yeah, you can only fit 2.
Well, now that we have every single 40K listener no longer listening to us, we're going to try our best to keep on topic, to keep on track here. And, you know, I got to say, John, I interrupted Jeremy, but in the bold red letters saying, let the man speak already for Garrett, I did not interrupt Garrett.
Nope.
What are we, 12 episodes in and I finally got to get through my phase once?
No, last time he actually specifically says you did good last time. So, you know, AOS rules team, not very fun with the rules writing. You know, really funny on Twitter, someone had mentioned that Rob Symes of Honest Wargamer, he of course made a post today saying, you know, this is the worst battle tome in AOS, and someone was just like, shut up, dude, you know you're secretly part of the marketing team and you're just trying to like rev them up, you know, give them publicity. So he was like, don't out me. That being said, we're not here to talk about knights or knights in Age of Sigmar. We're here to talk a little bit more about 40K. And with that, you know, I know that, Jeremy, you had some issues beyond Age of Sigmar when it came to rules writing. Now, can you tell me a little bit about some of the challenges, not to increase your blood pressure, you know, because I know that that's something that we want to try to manage. We want to try to lower. And, you know, I hope you're staying hydrated. I hope you're keeping active. We've got to reduce that.
St. George gin.
That being said, and
I
cut
thought
down
that
on
was
the
water.
cut down on the sodium. It absolutely was not water. It's Jeremy. That being, that being said, I know that there was another rules writing issue that you had, and it wasn't in terms of rules writing as much as it was organization and structure, specifically with the Space Marine Codex. You wanna share with our listeners a little bit about some of the issues you're having right there? Not to increase your blood pressure.
The thing is, like, if my blood pressure isn't high because I'm angry, the cumulative anger blood pressure would probably mean that I would die. Like, it was the Archer line, the cumulative hangovers will probably kill me. Like, if my blood pressure drops, I will probably pass away. So I have to remain a constant state of rage, like Bruce Banner. If Bruce Banner wasn't such a, or Bruce Banner, I'm sorry, Bruce Banner. If Bruce Banner wasn't such a wimp. All right, Mr. Jekyll. All right, let's see.
Mr. Jekyll.
Jekyll, yeah,
Dr. Bruce Jekyll and Mr.
Yeah, whatever. I'm entitled. It was a French book. All right, let's see. So what Alex is referring to in many words, instead of just very succinctly, is the fact that
you know what the word succinct means there, Jeremy?
Yeah, short and brief.
Are we sure? Are we certain?
Yeah.
Final answer.
Can you put up Inigo Montoya in your background? Let's see. So what he's referring to is the fact that this codex is one of the worst organized codex I think I've ever seen. And that's mostly a byproduct of a surplus of rules or an overload of rules, right? So the way they basically broke this book is that you start with, when you get to the actual rules that are mattering, you get to a detachment rule set. So if you play, because like Astartes, and you basically play only, if you only play as this fully built Battleforged army and every detachment is Astartes, you get all of these basically benefits depending on like what chapter you pick, and that could be the first founding or the successors or the the non-typical codex followers like Dark Angels, Space Wolf, and so forth. But then they go into like chapter command rules, phenomenal. Like they just decide to break down into like, what does it cost to upgrade your characters? What does it get? But then it breaks into stratagems, and then goes into warlord traits, spells, litanies, and so forth. You're like, okay, that must be all the rules, right? Like I have everything squared away in these sets of pages. Because then they jump into the crusade rules, which are like irrelevant for most competitive players because no one's playing crusade. It turns out that's not all the rules you get that matter for match play setting or non-crusade games. A lot of the rules are in the data sheet section, which were literally broken down to 2 pages right before the data sheets of the book. And you know what? Organizationally, it makes sense to have data sheet rules ahead of the data sheets. But why add the damn like 10 pages, or I'm exaggerating, I think it's only 8 pages of like crusade rules in between those two? Crusade rules should be at the back of the book if somebody wants to play
nobody would
crusade.
read them otherwise, Jeremy.
And it's like, it's just such a frustrating, because like what ended up happening on Sunday was like, I know shock tactic gives me the ability to get a +1 attack if I'm charge, or heroic intervene. But I'm like, I'm looking through all the pages in front of the crusade section. I'm like, I can't find this rule. Where the hell is it? And it turns out it's like after the crusade section for the 1.5 page of rules I get before the data sheets. And if it wasn't for John, it would have like driven me nuts the entire time, because I think it took me literally like almost 5 minutes to find. And
it was getting frustrating.
Yeah,
all I gotta say, Jeremy, is you see this little section right here? That's the crusade rules that are, like you said, right in the middle. I think that is exactly the thickness that a large paper clip would keep under control. I'm picturing a paper clip at the top and bottom, and then
just ignore those.
Just move by.
Yeah.
Now,
real quick,
you need to find the data sheet rules then.
Before we dive into that too, because we do want to have a deep discussion here about the Space Marine Codex, I just want to mention one other thing here. Now, there was, outside of John just mentioning that he was kind of like losing it watching us trying to figure out where the rule was for shock assault, himself as well as many others either on a personal basis for me, for Jeremy, or just like in the comment section, they've noted that our terrain is a little light in terms of how we structure.
Are we really going to talk about this?
No,
that is a whole episode. That's a whole episode.
No. Okay, it is a whole episode. So we're going to briefly mention this because it is on the agenda here, you guys. You got to read it, right? But we have been able to get good representation as to what would be probably an effective, a better, say, outlet or example of what our terrain might look like for future battle reports from the source itself. So you guys are gonna have a much better look as to what things might look like in future games. Which
well,
I'm excited to find out what you guys got, the secret tome of terrain placement knowledge. That should be exciting.
Yeah, we got some insider knowledge. We love it. Thank you, Mike B.
I'm shocked that didn't start another tirade.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your private collection of terrain and table. I appreciate you not being very specific when we asked you that the first time. No, seriously, like the terrain on Saturday or Sunday, was bad.
I mean, it really didn't benefit either of us.
It was an experiment.
Like the thing that like it benefited Jeremy more, but it wasn't really because of that. It was really because of bad dice rolls. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, like,
it had nothing to do with it had nothing to do with like the terrain.
So for context, my first turn, I killed a Doomstalker only because Alex didn't make a single 4-up invul. Secondly, I killed 5.
No. Specifically, you did 4 multi-melta shots from 2 attack bikes, 4 shots hit, 4 shots. No.
Yeah.
4 shots hit. 4 shots wound.
No.
They were not.
See what's happening here is we're about to talk about the exciting Space Marine Codex.
That's right.
Important rules and Alex doesn't care. He doesn't care. He wants to talk about terrain. Well, we don't want to talk about terrain, Alex. We're not talking about terrain no more. No.
Our listeners,
we want to talk Space Marine. We want to talk Space Marine
rules,
this man.
Is about Space
That's what we're
Alex,
talking
our
about.
listeners, don't
about Space Marines.
Don't spoil things for our listeners.
No.
Go watch the battle report.
This is about Space Marines. Let's just say
it's a good battle report. It is.
Let's just say that there were 4 dice that rolled all 4 ones twice in the game. I'll edit out a little bit of that earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a little bit of embellishment, but the point is, Alex did not have a good day. But to Alex's credit, he made do of the fact that he had little experience at the ninth edition played, and he lost because he picked bad secondaries. But moving on,
though, we want to, of course, talk about the Space Marine Codex. And with the Space Marine Codex, there's a lot here to look at. Of course, it is like 98 data slates. That is an insane amount compared to other factions. We have a lot with it, whether it's the fluff, which no one really cares about. It hasn't really changed all that much. But then there's all the units. There's all the new Primaris units. There's all these new strategies, ways to upgrade things. If you guys are listening to this podcast, you're well aware of 40K. You're well aware that there's some new sexy in terms of upgrades that we can have for the HQ choices. But John, can you tell us a little bit about some of the overall changes in the structure of the Space Marine Codex?
Sure. So the first change in the structure, and this is the first time I've ever seen this, but the rules section is thicker than the fluff section. I don't think I've ever seen that in any GW book I've bought to date. There are more rules than fluff. So take that to the bank, as you were. Other than that, Jeremy has kind of already went through the organization of the book, which we'll say it takes some getting used to. It's definitely not set up for quick reference. It is a setup in an order that has logic to it. It's just that logic isn't the logic you might apply to a reference book, okay? It is the logic you might apply to a textbook training you how to play the game, assuming that Crusade is a big section of it. And I think Garrett was the one who observed while we were talking earlier that it's actually laid out a lot like an Age of Sigmar battle tome. So without more callbacks to that, that's what we got there. Beyond that, Space Marines in a lot of ways work the same way that they did before. You're going to pick a chapter, and that chapter is going to give you access to a specific set of rules. And then beyond that, you're going to have access to a whole host of Space Marine rules, okay? And you're going to build your list. The things that are new, and this is what Alex alluded to, is this entire idea of chapter command. And this is kind of neat. We have all of these, what I would call basic level characters, lieutenants, captains, chaplains, librarian, and we even have the apothecary listed in here. But in the past, different editions, different campaign books, we've been able to access different upgrade characters. And so, for example, the chapter master has existed for at least, what, three, four codexes ago is when the chapter master first came in. And I was relating to the guys, when I actually made my first chapter master, he's up here, Mr. Chapter Master, right? When I built this guy and lit him up and all that good stuff, right? Ooh, light, see that? He was running me like, I want to say 185 points with like 205 points was his maximum build. Nowadays, I'm running around 150, maybe 160 points to build a chapter master. So before, you would use some command points to put your 100-point captain into chapter master mode. That was almost a gimme. And when you add in the fact that Space Marines in the past were one of the armies where it was easiest to get maximum amount of command points, that was just kind of like one of those broken type things. Now you're going to pay points to get the extra rules, which to me fits more in with how the game should be structured. The neat thing is that we now have, of course, Master of Sanctity, Master of the Forge. We have all these different characters, the librarian, and of course, the apothecary, which I'm sure we'll touch a little bit more on later, which is the big winner. Everybody's talking about the apothecary there. And then after that, they've gone into the stratagems. And again, we could argue about the placement in the book. I like them at the back because I could flip open to the last 2 pages of the book and always have the stratagems that I'm using during my game instead of in the middle of the book, the one thing I reference the most during the game, but at least I got cards. But now they've broken them up into concepts. And this is a thing where if you're going to go in and, use stratagems during the battle, one of my challenges before was Space Marines had so many stratagems, plus I was playing Ultramarines, which had their own set of stratagems. And for me, a lot of playing games at my friends' houses was literally trying to manage and figure out which stratagems were the right ones. And I would often, as I reviewed my games afterwards, realize multiple points where I could have taken advantage of stratagems to really flip the game in my advantage. When we look at the stratagems now, they're actually broken up into battle tactics, epic deeds, requisition, strategic ploys. And these little concepts are going to guide you as to when you're going to use them. Plus, they also have a color coding system, which as you begin to learn the rules, you're very quickly going to color identify. And it's going to be not just, oh, I remember that was a stratagem. You're going to remember, oh, I'm going to remember that was in the blue stratagems. And so when you start to look it up in the book, you're actually going to come to your stratagems, I think, a lot easier. And there's a lot fewer of them. Beyond that, of course, go ahead.
I just want to say, when I first took a look at this, I skipped ahead to, I think I skipped straight to the stratagem section because I kind of was like, oh, standard issue, Allegiance rules, standard issue, data sheets. I got to the stratagem section, and my ocular, I was confused. I was overwhelmed by the colors and options. Really, I was trying to wait. What do all these mean? Why are there all these things? Which ones do I pay attention to? I was confused, honestly. This is where you talk about an organization of a book. It's funny hearing John saying it's really nice having these color coding.
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing a list of options, and I can just kind of organize them in my brain and stuff. And I'm like, there's blues and pinks and pastels. And I'm like, holy crap, what does this mean? There's so many colors.
Yeah, I mean, all they're missing is a smell, right? You scratch it, and each one has its own unique smell. It's like, that smells like victory right there.
I couldn't read it it was unreadable for me because there were so many colors. It was like, someone decided to take 17 different highlighters to highlight some notes or something like that. I'm like, how do you read this? Without knowing the organizational structure from the beginning, coming at this fresh, especially with I'm indoctrinated with a certain system of reading books because of the many histories of codexes I've read, that coming into this with a certain expectation and not knowing that they were transferring to this color-coded system, I was just overwhelmed, and I was like, I need a break. How do I read this?
Well,
if I knew there was
I say one thing you got to watch with GW is you have this with the Space Marine book, and the Necron book has a lot of similar stuff, right? It's really basically the same. I have yet to see GW go through an entire edition's worth of codexes, so all the codexes complete, and them stick to a single formatting concept.
Yeah, no,
so
that doesn't.
I'm gonna say we're gonna see the codexes like this for maybe 4 to 6 codexes, and then we're gonna get some other completely different organization. Don't worry,
John. It's interesting that you note that because
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you know that because by the end of the year we are gonna have 4 more codexes.
Yes.
It's funny because they write these codexes like 8 months ago. So they before releasing them, they've already changed their mind. Like before we even see the Space Marine Codex, they've already written the codexes that are being released next June. So that if they've changed their mind, it was done before we saw the Space Marine Codex. Yes, Jeremy.
I want to point out that like all they did, by the way, they're color coding. Is the fact that they added keywords to stratagems, and that's all that matters.
But what does that mean?
Oh, so right now it means nothing, right?
Okay.
Same thing with second. So I'm this is speculation for my part, but there is some.
Oh no, you guys.
Oh, okay. Like I mean, you're. Goodbye.
I got the racing seat.
Goodbye, everyone. We're gonna go on another rant.
No, it's not a rant. It's just the fact that, like, for example, when they added the secondaries and 9th edition, they gave them all keyword limitations, right? There's categories, and you can only pick one of those secondaries of each category. You can't double up on secondaries from each category. So the reason why I believe they're adding keywords or types is for specifically multiple reasons. Let's say you have a stratagem that interacts with other player stratagems. What if they wanted to be very specific about what type of stratagems it interacts with? Like, let's say the whole Dark Eldar stratagem would prevents like a stratagem that your opponent can use. What if it's only battle tactic stratagem? Like, what if it's only epic deed stratagem? Like, it adds an element of control that the rules writer can play with, right? And then also, I mean, I don't know if I'm guessing here, but they might limit the amount of, like, especially the ones that are called epic deed. Like, you might be limited to only using them once per game in a future iteration of the game, right? And I think this is like what we're seeing is they're just getting really tight on how stratagems can interact in the game. And they're trying to control the abusiveness, because I think everybody coming out of AIF has one really big rallying cry is that like some stratagems are just systematically abusive, and they're maybe trying to figure out a way to like balance them out to be limited to maybe once per game, or you can't, or just like more like interactive, or like they're going to give people ability to counter other people's stratagems depending on like the type of stratagems it is. And I don't know, the way I read this is it just gives them another vector in which to write and enhance interactability between their opponents, and that's the way I look at it now. And I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal. So
yeah, I hadn't even considered that, but that is, I was purely thinking about it from the learning perspective, because that's how I'm looking at the book right now. I'm trying to learn the book, but as you said, the ability to say that this only interacts with these types of stratagems, or you can only do 2 epic deeds per phase, or any number of things, or this stratagem cannot be used in the same phase as another one, or as you said with the Dark Eldar, this can only stop a certain type. Like, wow, that I'm mind blown. And the nice thing is, now we of course are a competitively focused podcast, but I will say a large amount of my 40K friends are really more narratively focused. And I know a lot of people that are playing Crusade and or still playing their own narrative elements. And if you're playing a more of a narrative type game as a game master, if you will, or as a group of friends trying to tell that story, you can also use these to, again, kind of apply that control, or limits, because that's really what a lot of Crusade stuff is about. Let's get right down to it. We're playing a narrative game because I don't want you to alpha strike and kill me off the table turn 1. That's what it really comes down to. Most of the time we're talking narrative. We just want to slow down the pace of killing so that everybody gets to play with their models a little longer. There, I said it. And I think that this adds to that element. So I like these I like the organization. Like I said, I shouldn't say organization. I like the way these stratagems are laid out. Now, as I got into the warlord traits, holy crap, there's a lot of warlord traits. And there's about the same number of relics as we had before. And just like before, there's a couple of them that are, oh my gosh, wow, which of these 3 awesome relics am I going to apply to my army, or maybe all of them? And then the rest of them are me like, when would somebody ever use that? Right?
Yeah.
That seems to be pretty typical of relics. That's about it as far as, organization goes. There's no real, other than the adding of the command stuff, there's no huge change to how Space Marines work. Space Marines are still Space Marines.
Can I share something that was very interesting to me?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so in this army, or in this edition, there's a lot of very important changes to 9th edition compared to 8th or any previous edition. One of which is things like the change to auras, and a lot of those auras will work with things that have the core keyword. And we were going to talk about this before we started recording, but then Garrett told me to shut the fuck up and bring this out during recording. So I'm going to talk about this real quick before we start going. Thing. Yeah, before we start going into our round robin of chapters and things of that nature, which is next, you guys. What I was curious about, and like, and not that I was curious about what I know now, but what I'm curious about is whether or not there's going to be an expansive list of core units in further codexes. I'm specifically thinking of Xeno codexes that are non-Necron, like Eldar, Dark Eldar, Tyranids, Gene Stealer Cult. I'm really curious how many units are going to get core keyword, because I'm thinking that for the most part, just like Necron Codex, it's going to be something like 5 units. For Necrons, for instance.
Is there really only 5 units in the Necron Codex that are?
Yeah, it's Deathmarks, Warriors, Immortals, Lichguard, and Tombblades. Tombblades and Lichguard are both 2 wounds. The other 3 are 1 wound.
Is that all the foot units and the bike units?
It's the foot units. It's the foot units outside of flayed ones, which makes sense on a thematic reasons. And then it would be.
I'm surprised no destroyers and stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, thematically, they're putting destroyers have always been like since 5th edition. Destroyers have always been like a separate cult. They've been like they're like Daleks. They like are complete nihilists and they just want to destroy all life, and they don't give a fuck. But flayed ones are obviously cursed, so they're absolutely insane. So an overlord would rather just kill them than have them stick around after the battle. So that's the reason why those type of units wouldn't be core, because they're like a little deranged. I'm curious about what I mean to say for Xenos and like even Imperial Guard and shit. Like I'm really curious to see what ends up being core, because again, for Necrons, the only 2 9th edition codexes, core units for the non-Space Marine ones, we got 5 of them. 5. Space Marines, however, there's a bit. Let me give you guys a full. No. Let me give you a full and complete breakdown, Jeremy. We have 4 Space Marine Codex. Garrett, I want you to keep score in terms of a count here. We have Intercessor Squad, Assault Intercessor Squad, Heavy Intercessor Squad, Infiltrator Squad, Incursor Squad, Tactical Squad, Scout Squad, Veteran Intercessor Squad, Blade Guard Veteran Squad, Company Veterans, Vanguard Veterans, Stern Guard Veterans, Reaver Squad, Aggressor Squad, Terminator Assault Squad, Terminator Squad, Relic Terminator Squad, Dreadnought, Contemptor Dreadnought, Venerable Dreadnought, Ironclad Dreadnought, Redemptor Dreadnought, Assault Squad, Outrider Squad, Bike Squad, Scout Bike Squad, Attack Bike Squad, Suppressor Squad, Intercessor Squad, Hellblaster Squad, Eliminator Squad, Eradicator Squad, and Devastator Squad. Garrett, how much was that?
33.
33 core.
Okay, in defense,
I just counted. That's a lot.
So in defense of Space Marines, like first of all, you had 5 different Dreadnought variants that could just be summed up into 1.
Not 5 different Dreadnought variants.
No, you had Dreadnought, Contemptor Dreadnought, Venerable Dreadnought, Assault Dreadnought, and I think I missed one.
Yeah,
like that's 5, at least 4 different
Redeemer Dreadnought. Yeah,
Redeemer Dreadnought. That's 5 different Dreadnought variants that can be summed up to 1. So there's -4. How many different intercessor things that we can minus down to?
Oh, real quick, Garrett, you're giving me heavy vibes of late George Carlin, his stand-up where he talked about how the 10 commandments can get boiled down to 2. And he has like a 30-minute tirade and how he's like, so it's like, boom, and now you're down to 7. Like,
yeah, well, like again,
no,
like,
because you know what, the only thing I noticed, I think it's a travesty because the darn Invader ATV did not have the core keyword.
Oh,
no,
tragedy.
This is something. That's it. That's all messed up.
I
want my money back.
I think the problem is that
it doesn't.
In Necrons, there's just like not a lot of variety in units. Like there aren't like 7 different warrior variants.
No,
like
I
that's
know.
while there are 7 different
books.
Marine variants. Like there's intercessor. Like
I'm less worried about my codex rather than like Eldar and all these other fucking Xeno codex, non-Space Marine is what I mean.
I think
say.
Eldar has an opera.
They're going to make
Eldar. Let's talk about Eldar or Eldari. They should have substantial core units, right? All the aspect warriors. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking 9 to 10. Maybe 12 core units out of the Eldar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 6 or 7 aspect warriors plus the assault and guardian, or assault guardians plus I forget what the normal guardian.
Oh, and all the jet bike units; those should be core.
The jet bike units, and then the heavy weapons platforms.
Shining Spears and Crimson Hunters are both aspects. They should not be core.
Why not? Outriders got core. Why should
Crimson Hunters should be core?
It's not it's core keyword has nothing to do about anything other than what the rules writer thinks is balancing mechanic. Because the fact of the matter is core keyword only matters for auras and very specific stratagems,
which is the most important factor that we are trying to communicate here today.
Hold up, let me finish, because I'm gonna blow your mind here. The reason why destroyers don't have the core keyword is because Games Workshop was like, hey, you know what? A 2-up to hit rerolling 1 sounds a lot like just rerolling 3-ups all the time. Oh, we can't do that. That was really bad. That was really bad.
I'm not talking about my codex.
But you're making you're trying to make an argument that like, oh, I only got like 5 core keywords, which is still like probably like what 40% of your entire data sheets versus like 30 data sheets out of the Space Marine book, which you pointed out was like 95 data sheets, so it's only a third of the data sheets. So I'm just gonna point it out. If I'm gonna use statistics to make a point, I can definitely prove you wrong. But if I'm gonna make an argument about the fact that like the entire core keyword component is about balance, and then they just wanted to be very selective about how certain abilities, which are force multiplier, worked. They wanted very specific units to benefit from that. There's a reason. Sorry,
I just wanted to say, like, yeah, exactly. The thing is that Necrons have a shit ton of vehicles, and they specifically don't want these big ass vehicles benefiting from these aura abilities.
I would love to go on this tangent for an additional 45 minutes, but John took the time to write down such a great and wonderful schedule, and we're going to keep to it. Because we want to make sure that he gets the most out of this.
Your time has expired. Your time has expired.
No one is whining about Xeno codexes. I'm just curious about 33 separate data slates.
You mean a third of the data slates? Got it.
I don't give a shit.
You're worried about
more
the
than a
third
third.
of the data
Numbers.
In the book.
Don't worry, folks. Don't worry, folks.
Jeremy.
We're not breaking down. It's all good. The ship is still on track.
I want to talk about why the rules writer introduced core. And the core.
I think that's for a separate episode.
Okay. We already talked about it. We
already talked about it. We already talked about it.
We're done. That's it.
Which is great.
Alex won't let us talk no more. We're done.
We're not allowed to, but we do want to talk about some of the main chapters here. And we're going to be skipping over a few things because of the amount of time that had been taken. But John, you had just mentioned a few things right now. I'm gonna ask you some more here. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these main successor chapters, or not main successor chapters, but rather some of the main quote unquote Legion chapters, like, you know, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves? I know we're gonna have to do a part 2 of the Space Marine Codex at this point in time, but can you give me? I know that specifically you are a Dark Angels player at heart.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about how you feel with Dark Angels right now.
Schwing is exactly my description of Dark Angels right now. It was, as I was saying to you guys earlier, it's funny. You know, of course, I belong to all the Dark Angels forums and groups, and at first, you know, typical doer Dark Angels players was, oh, we've been nerfed. Oh, god damn it, our book has gone away, and now, and then everyone starts looking at it like, oh, wait a second. Oh no, we're good. We're good. And that's what I want to mention first. So without getting into deeply into the rules, because everybody has their favorite chapters. You can pick up the book, you can read through the many chapter rules. And honestly, if you didn't like the chapter tactics that are given, you can make your own successor with your own combos of rules. There's a lot of fluff, a lot of variety. But here's the thing. If you're playing Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Space Wolves, your codex is canceled. Your current codex is gone. Your psychic awakening rules, gone. None of those exist anymore. What you have is a FAQ with a reprint of data sheets that were specific to your codex, and now rules that are rolled into the actual Space Marine Codex. All 3 of these chapters that had their own books are in an amazing in-between broken spot right now. It's like GW said, we're taking your book away and everyone's going to be really mad, but we're going to take it away in a way that you like. So we're given all these rules that are really tasty, really powerful. I mean, I won't even get into some of the crazy Ravenwing ideas I have. I can't wait to test them on the table. That's why I'm building like a madman right now. But I guarantee you, come the beginning of next year, when these new books come out, all of these armies are going to take a huge hit in power level. Like Dark Angels peaks across the top every once in a while. They just kind of crest up there to get people to remember that they are the first Legion, but typically they're fallen to a much lower power level than that.
Dark Angels, it's only Ravenwing that's ever good.
Well, okay, so arguably right now, Deathwing, since they all carry Inner Circle, is pretty baller, and those Deathwing Knights are looking pretty amazing too. Okay. I myself don't own much Deathwing, as about 2 years ago, one of my friends' brother's son was getting into the game, and they weren't very wealthy, so he just wanted to get it. So I gave him all my Deathwing Terminators. I gave all my Deathwing to this kid. And so he's got an awesome, incredible Deathwing army that's pretty baller right now. I
just noticed that basically anytime bikes peak, Ravenwing becomes broken. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, bikes are okay, bikes are bad, bikes are okay, bikes are really good, Ravenwing broken. Like, that seems to be a common theme. That's when Dark Angels become good, is when bikes become good.
I mean, right now we're talking, if you're playing Ravenwing, you have an invuln save, right? Yeah. Every time you move, all your models have an invulnerable save. Like, holy moly! Not to mention the
don't hug
wounds.
Objectives. Yeah, always move.
All the other stuff that's going on. You've got an army-wide invuln save. This is something I haven't seen since the early days of Jink, right? Playing Ravenwing and White Scars back there, and you throw out your little Jink, you get that invuln save. That's how early on you would take your bike army and you would advance up the table, get that Jink save going, weather the storm, and then be in position to tear up. And that's what I'm hoping we can do again with the Ravenwing. Got the Black Knights with that Inner Circle going on. You've got the army-wide, Ravenwing-wide, at least invulnerable save. They're going to rock. So I'm pretty excited about what Dark Angels are doing. Not to mention, they have the, let's see, where is that? Oh yeah, they still have the Grim Resolve, which is automatically pass morale tests, which it's not really a big deal for Marines anyways, but it's a nice little addition. So Dark Angels. Now, Dark Angels, unfortunately, in their codex, were only strong in Devastator Doctrine. So if you were a Dark Angels player, you basically were one of the people that wanted to make Devastator Doctrine last for multiple rounds. And when they put the big nerf on that basically you could only be in Devastator Doctrine in the first turn, Dark Angels also took a big hit from their codex. So I'm pretty excited where they're back. But the main thing I want to point out to people is that if you're playing those armies, your book is done. Throw it away. One more piece of collector's art from GW.
That's a very good way to frame it, sir. We of course have other rules for more than just say the Dark Angels there, but we already know that Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and I think Grey Knights are going to be actually out in terms of their individual codexes by the end of the year as well. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. That's
right. Dark Angels are not announced, but we're thinking early next year.
Oh, so they weren't that's probably why they're in the book then.
Well, no, the Grey Knights are the only ones that are not in the Space Marine book. So the only Astartes army that's a loyalist Astartes army is the Grey Knights. Well, I mean, I don't know if I count Dark Angels. They're like half loyalists, right?
You guys can't see it. Even the people who are watching the video cast can't see it. I mean, we're that was a jab that Jeremy just made at John, unwarranted and unsolicited. But I did send a few memes your guys' way in the Discord, specifically prequel meme, best meme, and then also another one that's both based around Dark Angels that are not obviously just haha traitor memes.
Now you're gonna make me open up Discord, darn you.
Well, yeah. I do want to hit up on Garrett's point a little bit. At the moment, and this is my personal opinion, firstborn biker units are just too damn good.
Oh, how many points are they? 30?
Yeah, I think they're 30 points for 3 wounds of model.
What is a firstborn?
It's non-primaris. Firstborns are non-old Marines. It's what they call old Marines. It's firstborn.
The ones that don't get executed by custodes for no reason.
Yeah,
well,
the
those
bikes that I have a massive bike army of, right?
Yeah.
Don, do you have to change the bases of your bikes, by the way?
He does. Yeah. He does.
Oh,
we don't.
Yeah, I had to swap all my. I had to swap all my orc bikes. That was.
Wait, John, are your bike spaces on the old square ones?
No, they're on the
old. He has the old
Jeremy, I hate to say this, you have to change the size of your bases.
Oh, I mean that's not a problem, but I thought
he has those ones.
Those are the old bases. The
new ones.
But due to wiring, I'm actually not going to swap those out. So that they're going to stay as they are.
Can you get Can you get the extender?
I don't even want to fucking hear it. Shut the fuck up.
Okay.
I don't even want to fucking hear it. Anyways, no.
You guys are going to make edging. Hold on. For the record.
But what I was going to actually say is Jeremy, you know what? You're right. As much shit as I give you, I'll take the shit, but I'm not doing anything about it. But, Jeremy, as you're talking about those bikes, have you noticed the change in the unit construction?
Yeah, I did.
You want to throw it out there?
Well, no, it's the same. They changed. What do you mean?
It's now It's always been 9 models, but to get to 9 models before it was an attack bike. You don't have to take the attack bike. You can now take 9 regular bikes.
Oh, you could always do that in the last 2 editions.
Nope. You could only take 8 bikes and then add in an attack bike.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're 100% because they added up to 10 Marine bodies, which was like 2 of them on the attack bike. What? Yeah, yes, you're correct. I just it didn't click in my head because I'm like, it's always 10 models. I don't know what you're talking about, John.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're right.
Now it's you can have 9 regular bikes, and Space Wolves can go to 16 bikes.
Yeah, Swift Claws. Yeah, they could. Yeah, and then in my game against Alex, I just it's like one of us. Like it's just one of the few games I played with my bikers in a very long time, and I was just like. I was like feeling like, oh my God, it's like playing Raven Wing with like Bolter Banner, like everywhere. That's how I felt like the entire game. I was just like, I'm Raven Wing with Bolter Banner, except I'm like way better in combat than I've ever been in Raven Wing days. So it was, but the math doesn't work out for me because I was like, this is a 3-wound model that's toughness 5 with 14-inch movement, with 4 shots in the shooting phase with the twin bolter. A chainsaw that's basically an extra attack Ren 1, and then if you have a melta gun, you get or whatever, you get another shot. I'm like, they're cheaper than 9 heavy intercessors, which stat wise work at the same, except half the well, I think it's like a little bit less than half the speed. Same save, half the guns, or half the I guess half the shots effectively. I was just like, there's no way in hell that these models are staying the same price. Like the difference is obviously heavy intercessors are troops, which means they're OPSEC right at the get-go, and then bikers require you to take a warlord trait for them to be OPSEC.
Or you could just zone out an objective so it doesn't matter that they're not OPSEC.
Right. There's a lot of ways of playing around it. I'm just saying, I'm pointing out that the trade-offs don't explain the price point is what I'm saying. Like the point cost is not.
I'd say the actual price point for them remains the same. It's going to be 3 bikes, 2 plasma guns, 1 combi plas, 120 points, and you're firing off 12 bolter shots and 6 plasma shots at 12 inches or 24.
Yep.
Depending.
And in the tactical doctrine, you get an additional random those plasma shots.
And so the bolter shots?
And the bolter shots, yeah. Like firstborn bikers are in this weird spot of like, I think anybody who's got a lot of bikes in their shells been like, oh, because like keep in mind, guys, this is the edition where objectives can't not be in terrain. Yep. So like your bikers can actually get those objectives. You don't have to weird like, oh my god, this objective is on the second floor of this room, I can never get to it. That's not a thing anymore.
I'm within 3 inches, my bike is standing up on the wall.
that's not a thing anymore. So you're just like, yeah, biker. The only downside is biker army is a little bit harder to hide from alpha strikes, but who really cares when you're paying for like 30 points for a toughness 5/3 wound model?
You're used to not having cover saves. You're used to just not, and like I said, myself, I own 5 full bike squads. I used to run a full bike army. Right?
Yeah.
So that is actually 40 bikes total, and now I can run 27 of those in 3 squads of 9. So not too bad. Or I could switch over to Space Wolves. I could have my Ultra Wolves on the table. No.
And
Alex gave me the super stink eye.
Could you run like 3 squads of 9 bikes, 3 squads of 9 Ravenwing bikes, 3 squads of 9 veteran Ravenwing bikes? Can you do something like that where you
there's no such thing as the veteran Ravenwing?
Well, there's like the Black Knight. There's like the Black Knight.
Yeah, the Black
Knights.
Under Dark Angels, yes, you could do. Basically, you could do 3 squads of 9 bikes, and then you could do your squads of Black Knights.
Yeah. Okay.
But what they've taken away is you can no longer do a bike upgrade to your veteran squad. So it used to be able to, you would take a veteran squad and upgrade them to bikes to get your second set of triple bikes.
I also double checked before we were talking earlier. So Ravenwing apothecaries cannot be upgraded to the Ravenwing command because they have to be an infantry model to get the benefit of that. They have to be a character, not infantry, character model. And I believe the Ravenwing apothecary is not a character.
So he's not a character?
He's not a character.
Because I believe he's like taken part of the command squad.
No, he's a standalone character from the.
Oh, is he a standalone character? Okay, so he's fine.
He has a character keyword, yeah.
Because the Space Marine, like current book, if you take a command squad, like the apothecary is not a character in it. Or sorry, no, it's rewarded differently. It's not. You can take an apothecary, but it takes no force org, as long as you have a command. It's anyway. If it requires you to be a character. If you're not a character, you cannot upgrade it into a master apothecary.
And what Jeremy is implying there is one of the neat little things is that you think about the invader ATVs with your 8 wounds. If you pair that with an apothecary that can bring back whole models. But as I'm thinking about it, can it only bring back core units? Because invaders are not core.
I checked.
Okay. Here. Don't anticipate that to survive December.
No, I think I'll stick around because like, what's the max size of an ATV unit? Like 3, right?
3.
Yeah. And actually, it's a fairly expensive investment. They're like when we're multi-melted, they're 80 points each, so that's 240 points for 3.
You're spending 40 points for the base and 10 points for the multi-melta.
That's an attack bike. That's the price range of it. Yeah, it's a price range of an attack bike.
All right. So Jeremy, we've talked a lot about bikes. I don't know much about the 8th edition Space Marine new book, and I haven't really read through this one. Lightning round.
Sure.
What are the big winners and losers of this book?
Okay.
That's a fantastic
So
question.
core changes from one edition to the next, and the Show No Fear got rewarded to no longer reroll morale checks. It's
What does it
reroll.
change to?
It's changing to ignore attrition modifiers. So all the sudden things which give you additional leadership values are a lot more valuable, like Ultramarines. So Ultramarines got like a double whammy because they not only get +1 leadership, which makes them a little less punishing to attrition checks or failed morale check, but they also have the fact that they can retreat and shoot at -1 modifiers with no CP costs, which was a thing like a lot of armies in 8th edition used to get the benefit of if you had the fly keyword, but now you don't get that anymore. And in fact, they'd stripped most of the fly keyword away from all the Space Marine hover tanks. So effectively, Ultramarines kind of like transition from 8th to 9th of like, oh, we have most of the rules from 8th edition intact. Got it.
So wait, the hover tanks don't have fly anymore?
Nope.
Nope.
No, the
Too
primary
low to the
stats-
ground, baby.
The same with Monolith, effectively. They
I don't
also
give a
get.
fuck.
Okay. But the point of the matter is they're deciding to say that things which don't really fly but hover, and that's not a flyer, don't get the fly keyword effectively. So that's basically like the way they're going about making them slightly more harder to use because of terrain rules. Anyway, Ultramarines get to double dip in that. So, and they also get the advantage of like now armies are limited to a set amount of CP when the army creation, right? So all of their like big characters like Marnus Kogar, Robot Goleman, get like the plus some number of CP at the start of the game. So they start just the game with more CP than most armies, and they also get the refund 5 on a 5-up. And then lastly, the big important
and they're not spending as many at the beginning of the game either.
That's right.
Oh, really?
And finally, one of the big changes was the way they reworded aura rules for chapter masters and captains, right? Being only core keyword and so forth. Well, Reboot Guilliman still only affects core, like that's still something, but he has a chapter master aura. So where the chapter master gives 1 unit in the command phase, reroll everything they hit. That's core aura character. Reboot Guilliman still affects every unit within 6. That's an Ultramarines unit. That's core. So basically, he still has the old kind of like when you think of him as rules writing, he still has the old chapter master rule. So effectively, Ultramarines went up. I wouldn't say like from one edition to the next, they went up in power tier, but they didn't really lose anything in the raw level of power from the last edition.
Can he still come back after dying?
Yeah, of course he can still come back. He just doesn't get a reroll anymore because they changed the CP, the generic CP reroll mechanic.
And Ultramarines have always kind of been in. They're not the best. They're not the worst. They're kind of from the Ultramarine within the Space Marine tiers. They're in the mid to upper of Space Marine tiers. And Ultramarines have a balanced toolkit. And let's face it, Ultramarines in tactical doctrine are going to kick some ass. They love the tactical doctrine still.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
All right. So what next is probably from. In terms of gaining power, sorry, John, you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say, for me, one of the things I'd like to point out about this book is right now there are at least, I think, 9, maybe 10 units that are in this book that the kits have not been released yet.
Ooh.
And so right now we're playing with not everything that's in this book. And that's one thing I want to point out to you is over the next couple months, what's good and what people play with and how this book is used is going to change radically in waves. We're in an initial opening phase of Space Marine, and we're going to see certain types of things strong here. In a month, we're going to start seeing replacement supplemental codexes, and we're going to see release of the rest of the models from this codex. We're going to see a completely different power curve, and we're going to see much more variety, completely different types of armor.
What's interesting from that perspective is due to the pandemic and the resurgence of TTS events, I feel like that is maybe not the non-release of kits doesn't actually affect people's perspective of looking at a power level of a book, because they can then test how the perfect world of every kit being released and owning every model is played, because they can just use TTS.
Kind of.
Yeah, but TTS 40K is weird. In addition to that, some armies don't have those. If there are new army with a lot new models,
you can proxy and nobody cares though.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
so you can proxy in real life though.
Yeah, but for events, nobody's gonna care if you proxy. That's the difference.
I think Garrett's just pointing that you can actually play, even though that you're using a platform that might teach you some bad habits.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next chapter, I will say, like, we talk about one that got a boost. Let's talk about one that got a little bit of a nerf. Iron Hands, once again, got a little bit of a nerf.
And on the back of nerf after nerf after nerf, right?
Right. They've just been getting nerfed a little bit.
Necessary nerf after nerf after nerf. Let's just put that out there.
So two things that happened.
Fuck 'em.
Well, really just one thing that happened. So one of the combos they enjoyed for a little bit of period of time was in the Psychic Awakening era. They would get like an apothecary that was a Mather apothecary, and would give them like effectively 5-up shrug saves, because they would like the apothecary shrug save would basically increase to 5-up for a nearby Iron Hands unit. Well, they lost that in this edition or this updated book. Now, keep in mind, Games Workshop hasn't really said actively if you're supposed to ignore the Fifth and Fury rules. I'm guessing, actually, I think they've said it for certain things. I don't know if they said it for everything, because like litanies are still like up in the air, because there was like chapter specific litanies. Anyway, I believe today Iron Hands lost the ability to get 5-up shrug from a Master Apothecary. So they went down a little bit in power level. But if you played March of the Ancient style Iron Hands list, which is like basically mostly dreadnoughts, you went up in power level a little bit, because you could now take a warlord trait that made core units, aka dreadnoughts, OPSEC. So that was like a very kind of like a little bit of a trade-off, right? You lost a little bit of durability for the advantage of making, like, if you played a dreadnought list, to have OPSEC dreadnought. And dreadnought list
OPSEC anyways. Dreadnoughts should be OPSEC. I'm down with that.
It's just for Iron Hands, like, if it's kind of like thematic, and also I will say upfront, like, not a bad strategy. So that's a good, like, it's a good trade-off effectively. Now, for an army that benefited a lot from this edition change, I will say White Scars is the second army after Ultramarines that benefited the most in terms of like rule changes from 9th. Sure, like their old previous ability used to give them ignore shooting, ignore the penalty for shooting heavy weapons on a biker platform, but that was basically integrated for all of 9th. But really, the big changes in the stratagem section, where effectively they gain an additional stratagem to be able to shoot after advancing, which is something that was roped up in the core book, but they also have their own unique one in their expansion book, allowing them to, until we further know any of the interactions of stratagems from the previous expansion books to the core Space Marine book, allows them to have 2 units basically shoot in the after advancing during their own turn. So in terms of power level, they went up, and also Firstborn Bikers got drastically better. So White Scar players like me were mostly built around biker lists. Your entire army just got like drastically better from 8th edition to 9th.
Is there anything about White Scars that make bikes good?
Yeah. So mostly a lot of warlord traits. Warlords. Well, so firstly, they tried to give us like biker captains and the whites, because remember they removed biker captains in the last Space Marine books, so they added it back in as Con on a bike, which was like a pseudo like captain on a bike, but not quite as exciting as the current version of the captain on a bike. So effectively, we ended up getting a Con on a bike who can take a Thunderhammer, because the previous White Scar iteration could not. Like, he just got stuck with this like pseudo power fist only if he charged. So now they basically have like a regular, like they can take a Thunderhammer and they're Con on a bike effectively. And then they also have a bunch of stratagems inside the basic book that affects bikers. Like you can take one that just makes you -1 to be hit at if you're a biker unit or a land speeder unit. You can also take one, like I said, that lets you shoot and charge, or so shoot after advancing. So it's not that the necessarily White Scar bikers got better, but they give us like a wider breadth of options, especially in the HQ selection, and the fact that like they kind of double dip in some of the existing White Scar stratagems. Also, one of the, I think, amazing thing, but that was around from Psychic Awakening, I think, was the fact that like White Scars had the ability to spend a command point for their biker units to be able to consolidate D6 plus 6 inches. And now with like a Litany of Faith ability, they can D6 plus 6 plus 2. So effectively it's 8 inches plus D6 in terms of consolidate. So they can just like really, like after wiping out something, just get back in something's face, like really incredibly, and then have no penalty because they can retreat and shoot with a stratagem, or retreat and charge them, no like stratagem cost. So White Scars got better. What the downside is, a lot of White Scar lists in 8th edition were basically around Assault Centurions, which are no longer core, so got worse. Their one advantage additionally is that the fact that they have a stratagem that lets them put a unit in strategic reserve that can come in from any table edge, and starting from turn 2 instead of the short table edge or a non-player's deployment table edge. So it's a good cheap way of getting like effective strategic reserve, right? Because if you have like a power level, I think it's like above 10, you have to pay 2 command point for strategic reserve. Well, they only pay 1, and they can come in from your table edge. So
that's nice.
Value,
outflank
value
is always
prop,
strong.
Value prop from that. So that was the second chapter that got the biggest buff. The second chapter that got the biggest nerf, in a sense, is Raven Guard. I honestly, Raven Guard is not worth talking about. They got like no buffs. They got, honestly, I would say arguably biggest nerf, because they started introducing in 9th edition a bunch of units or mechanics that prevent armies that would ignore look at Sir. So like their entire thing of being able to like snap at characters and more effectively, because they ignore look at Sir triggers, will just got effectively like, oh, you can't use that. So they're not.
And they've been falling on the power curve for a while. Like Raven Guard had a little kind of a moment in early 8th edition when they were really shining, but they haven't been good for a while. So I'm with you. Like I said, almost not worth mentioning at this point.
Yeah, and the reason why they were so powerful is because Imperial Knight lists, which were very popular, tend to be very character heavy. So they would have the plus like 1 to wound against characters. So all of a sudden, like their bolters were wounding on 4s at like Imperial Knight. Sorry, wounding on 5s Imperial Knights. And so they were very popular because they would counter Imperial Knights. But as Imperial Knights faded, they got less and less attractive. And then this book just really didn't give him anything more.
No.
And I will say that like if you do a mostly Phobos Raven Guard list, I think there's some tools there, but nothing that's like raw power increase. The third chapter that got the biggest boost, and I will say at this point we're dealing with like flat boosts and power levels, is Imperial Fist. Imperial Fist basically didn't lose anything from one edition to the next. The only thing that they gained was the fact that they introduced heavy intercessors, which are going to be effectively probably a staple in many Marine lists, but probably incredibly much a staple in every Imperial Fist list. They're just basically more bolters on tougher bodies that you can make incredibly durable with transhuman physiology and the ability to ignore or give themselves +1 save if your damage characteristic is 1. So these toughness 5 bodies can go up to 2 up armor, and ignoring wound rolls of 1, 2, 3. So they're just going to be incredibly useful, and that's mostly because they introduced some secondaries in the Space Marine book. We haven't really talked about those, but
we're not gonna have time to either.
I know,
actually,
but
that brings up a small thought for me. If I have a reroll wound mechanic and I'm using transhuman physiology, let's say I would normally wound you on a 3. Do I not get to re-roll that under transhuman physiology?
It depends. Is the wording re-roll failed wounds, or is it re-roll all wounds?
I thought it says it doesn't wound on a 1, 2,
or 3. Your re-roll. Your re-roll.
If you re-roll all wounds, you can just.
Oh, I see. If you re-roll all wounds, you can choose to do whatever. But if it fails, then it would not be triggered, much like with Rend or what have you. Okay, that makes sense.
So, in terms of like power level, the reason why I think Imperial Fist got a boost is because heavy intercessors and plus the new secondaries. because Oath of Moment is a very easy one for Imperial Fist infantry list to just basically keep maxing out on, or like get as many points as possible. Your army's good at killing monsters and vehicles. Great. Like those are points. Your army's good at settling in the center of the table and not giving a shit. Great. That's extra points. And then your army is good at not falling away, running away. Great, extra points. like if you build your army on all those three principles, that secondary is like incredibly easy. And I think in Imperial Fists are like, I wouldn't say they're best at it, but they're very good at it. So
and
they got an overall buff.
You're talking about the new Space Marine secondaries, right?
Yeah, one of the three. Yeah, I'm talking about
one of the Space Marine secondaries
where
is a
that
must-have.
Is there are secondaries, of course, in associated in the actual core rulebook.
That's right.
Now we're seeing secondaries that are specific to Space Marines. And did we see secondaries that were specific to Necrons as well?
Well, yes. In our last 40K episode, we explicitly talked about how the fact that every single codex is going to have 3 to 4 secondary objectives, and it is going to be something that's common. And we're even going to be having that as a point of discussion in our last 40K episode, was the fact and the presumptive caution that secondaries that are codex specific might become a little overpowered. Now, so far, the Space Marine one, that one of 4 Space Marine ones, is the only one that comes out as problematic. That one, it seems to be the only one that's a must take always, whereas the other ones are either bad and won't be taken, or are situationally taken.
I think this is going to be a great discussion on our Thursday stats show, Jeremy, as we go over what secondaries are being taken. Yeah. Before we wrap up, because I know Alex is looking at the clock here, I want to talk about the big bad in the room. In early 9th edition, salamanders came up on top as a big dog in town, and I didn't hear them mentioned at all in your look on Marines.
Well, I was talking about like winners. I guess you can argue they're a loser because they lost the ability to get their universal 1 reroll to hit per unit. They keep the wound roll, but they lost the 1 universal to hit roll. But that's really it. Like you could argue it's like, in fact, like you lost that, but you gained 3 inches on your flamers, and you got better melta guns. So arguably in a sense, like they didn't get nerfed. They're just exactly where they were at before.
So
and arguably,
fists.
Yeah, arguably maybe a little bit better. Everybody, like when the first leaks of the Space Marine, I remember when the leaks of the Space Marine book came out, people were like, oh, Vulcan's going to be amazing because he lets you reroll all hits to like flamers and like, or melted weapons. And I forgot what he gave to flamers, but the point was that like, yeah, but then they end up facking him as soon as the 9th edition Space Marine book was like, no, it's just core keyword. Because people were like, oh my God, you can make, like, he's going to be able to like circumvent some of like the nerfs. And like, no. Vulcan still only affects core keyword units. But at the end of the day, like they haven't moved, right? So in terms of like power level, they haven't moved at all.
So since Space Marines are the most common faction, like I just want to hammer in on this. Like, so when you go to tournaments, end of 8th edition, it was Iron Hands everywhere. Start of 9th edition, it was salamanders everywhere. Coming after this book, what do you think are we going to see at all the tournaments? Are we going to see shit to the salamanders? Is it going to be white scars? Is it going to be like ultramarines? What are we going to see hitting
salamanders, dark angels? Salamanders, dark angels, white scars. That's my prediction.
Can I say in another way? And that's mostly because we didn't really talk about it in depth of stratagems, but I don't think it's going to change. Like John has said, faction wise, it's not going to change. But I will say that I think you're going to see a lot more Reavers on the table, and that's because of how they interact now with 9th edition. They have a stratagem that lets you remove OBSEC from units if they're wholly even, or it's an aura range of within 6. They have that same stratagem allows them to prevent units from completing actions. So like a unit that you can basically come off reserve that has these powers allows to potentially do, especially with the introduction of like codex specific stratagems or secondaries, allows you to basically maybe swing the game 5 points in your favor because they succeed in preventing your opponent from doing those things.
So when they prevent an action, is that a you can use it on your opponent turn thing? Because things like deploy scramblers the action is completed at the end of the turn you use it. So it's kind of like not a problem. Or do you have to use the stratagem on your turn? So it's only like raise the banners high.
So it's only on your turn.
That's not as good because
well,
the secondary.
If you look at a lot of them now actually say you do it in your command phase and it's active until your next command phase.
Those ones are not as popular. Those ones are not as popular because people realize that making you wait until your next command phase that gives your opponent so many opportunities to disrupt that action via killing the unit or making.
But that's okay.
I'm talking stratagems that are in effect across that distance.
Oh, okay. So that stratagem that disrupts actions is available until your next command phase?
No. Jeremy said it's only on your turn, but I'm saying there's a potential that it could have been written the other way.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing now. Command phase to command phase is a thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw that coming because Age of Sigmar.
But Deploy Scrambler, by the way, is up to a max of like, 10 points or 12 points? It's not up to 15. 10 points. So, but like the Necron one that's basic in action, which is called like Treasure of the Eons or something. I forgot what it's called, where like you can get up to 15 points by basically taking this action on objectives. A Reaver unit, and it's exponential. So the more objectives they do it on, the more points they get in that turn. Like it has, and you're gonna see that there is a Space Marine equivalent, kind of. No, actually, no, I'm wrong. There's no Space Marine equivalent, but you will see more books with like these action steps, which are effectively, exponential. And I think like, removing obstacle is great. Stopping your opponent for achieving an action is a nice low additional bonus to that stratagem. So I think Reavers are probably going to make a comeback in Space Marine lists. I don't think they're going to be like spam, but I think like a unit of 5, a unit of 10 maybe, or 2 units of 5, but no more than that. But the idea that like you basically now have a unit that can completely like screw up your opponent's like scoring mechanism is incredibly strong toolbox option, right?
That being said, you guys, right now we got a lot of shit to talk about with the Space Marine Codex. It's going to take about 6 to 12 episodes for us to actually finish it. So we're going to actually stop there. If you guys want more, hit us up on our Discord. We, in order to get access to it and have a long, extensive, George R.R. Martin length laundry list from Jeremy Bessier, you do have to be a patron. So you got to buy him a couple of cups of coffee a month in order for you to really get those details. So we can't show you everything at once, right? Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? That's not the world we live in here. That being said, if you guys like this, do like and subscribe on Facebook, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We have a lot more coming up in the rest of the week. John, you have something coming up on Wednesday of this week? Is that right?
Absolutely. So this last Wednesday, everybody saw my second episode of building the Scorpek Destroyer Lord. And of course, next Wednesday, I'm going to continue with that. I think it's going to only go for 2 more episodes. I want to wrap this one up pretty quick because I'm actually really excited to get into building and lighting the Silent King, which is going to be my next project behind the Scorpek Lord. So that's what I got coming up.
Very cool. Hell yeah. Okay, cool. So we got that. We have a stats show coming up this week too, right?
Next Monday.
Next Monday.
It'll be released next Monday, yes.
Next Monday.
And then we will not be having a 40K stream on Sunday this week. We're actually not having any stream on Sunday this week.
We're not.
We're not having one on Sunday.
Just grab your phone and stream at the hall you're going to be at.
Well, no. We will have a recorded episode. We'll be releasing on Sunday. It's just not going to be live stream. I'm sorry, but
wait, what's the recorded episode?
What do you mean?
He's recording a battle. He's going to record a.
Is it going to be
battle.
you and Gareth?
Okay, Alex. Anyway, we're going to be moving on to other topics at hand here. Look forward to the stat show and the recorded battle rep we're going to play on Sunday. Oh my God, you throw me in a fluster. I guess gin is like the worst thing I can possibly drink on this show, apparently. And then finally, we're
He's
going
just
to
discovered this like 5 episodes
Yeah.
of Jin in.
Yeah, I was
oh my
like,
god,
okay,
I'm just like
so
losing
Jay
my
becomes
mind.
someone that we have to herd once he has Jin.
Yeah, maybe get a squid prodder while you at it.
This is
And
gonna
then
be fun editing.
to editing. There was one last thing we need to talk about, and that's the fact that me and Alex will be playing a TTS event coming up soon. 2 weeks from now, Alex.
2 weeks from today, yeah, it'll be an Age of Sigmar event.
Yeah, Age of Sigmar event, and we will be streaming those games. So
yeah,
all right.
Cool. Well, yeah, we have some content here. We're going to be showing you guys a little bit more over the week. Do check out John's hobby stream. And then, yeah, if you guys have anything you'd like to see, leave us a review. If you guys just want to talk shit, that's perfectly fine too. We'll probably read it off during the podcast. That being said, this is going to be Alex, John, Jeremy, and Garrett signing off for the evening. Have a good night.